It is yet another moment when we meet at the feet of Jesus just to share that which we've been sharing for the many days that have gone. This is a whole new quarter. Last quarter, which ended last week, we were talking about family seasons, and now we want to discuss more about ministering to the needs of those that are least amongst ourselves, those that are in need, and those that God has chosen to serve and minister today in this discussion are none other than our brother Dan Okendo.
Thank you. It's another good moment that we have together, and I want to say, as we want to go through this quarter, considering the list, I just want to pray that God will help us to bring more and even unto the viewer.
Thank you so much, Sister Mabel.
Thank you. We thank God for another opportunity to discuss His Word today. And as we go into this study of the least among the least, we pray that God will give us the wisdom and the knowledge and the foresight to be able to take care of the people and to represent Him amongst fellow people.
Thank you so much, Mabel. And the last one on the set is our brother Charles. We call him Sir Charles.
Thanks, Elder. Candidates of heaven back at home, we are glad that you are watching and you are with us. We also, as your fellow candidates of heaven, we welcome you today into our program so that we discuss what the Lord has for us. Thanks, Elder.
Thank you so much. So, Brother Dan, can you kindly pray with us so we can begin together?
Let's believe and pray. Our Father in heaven, we want to thank you for this opportunity that you've given to us, even as we want to consider, open the Bible and study thy word. How I pray that the Spirit may guide us, open our understanding, and lead us into your understanding. I pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen. As I said earlier, we just concluded a serious discussion, which was more about family seasons and what we go through every other day. And we read from the wisdom of Solomon that all those times when things are good, things are bad, when we get born, when we die, and all those seasons we go through as families. But now, having gone through that, a lesson that we learned in the conclusion of last week, that is last quarter's lesson, we realized that fathers have a bigger role. Remember, you look at the examples of Moses, the examples of Joshua, and Joshua was a rather stunning example in Joshua 24:15, which is a common verse. He says what? That as for me and my family, I choose to do what? To serve the Lord. I choose to worship and obey God. And that's a role that we have as fathers. That's a role Charles and Dan we have. And even our small boys who are still growing up to always make a choice to serve God. And so in conclusion then, we realize that a family that serves God is a family which worships God together. A family that is able to build the family altar, and a family that is able even to attend church together, to attend fellowships together, a family that is able to reach out to others and be able to worship together. We also saw that a spiritual family is one that honors God, whereby the word of God is given a special position within the family. A family which at the end of the day makes prayer a daily practice. And all those things will make us have clear families that are really, as Charles said, candidates of heaven. And so to conclude on that, we said that under our brothers at home and us here in the studio and everywhere else, brothers and sisters, I want to give you an assurance that the seasons of death, the seasons of breakdowns, the seasons of diseases, the seasons of mourning and crying and weeping and gnashing of teeth, the seasons of poverty and disease, the seasons of family breakages are coming to an end. And so as they come to an end, Isaiah 11 verse 6, if I can read, it says that the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the young lion and the faulting together. A little child shall lead them. That's the season of hope which we're looking forward to. And so, as we now start a new quarter, the next 13 weeks, that's the next 3 months, we're going to study on a very important theme, which is practical Christianity, doing things Christ's way. And so the question we're here to answer through this quarter is, whenever we face these situations, how do we need to handle them? And how could Christ have handled them? And so if we learn of Christ, who's our best teacher, we can be able to be hands for his holy use. And so to start us off, Sister Mabel, we have the Great Commission to go and preach and to teach and to make disciples and to do everything that we've been commanded. And among the things that Christ has commanded us to do is to ensure that we're able to reach out to the needs of others. And so let's go back to the story of creation. What did God intend to have from the beginning? And what has changed so far? And what should be our role? So Mabel, kindly take us through the introduction.
Okay, thank you. From the time of creation, we see that God created the world. He made the heaven and the earth, and everything that he made was beautiful. We find that in the book of Genesis, Genesis chapter 1.
Which chapter are we talking about?
Genesis chapter 1, verse 1.
The Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
That is just the introductory part.
In the beginning.
And it shows that everything, the heaven and the earth, as we know it. So we know that the earth has many other, like, what do you call them? Other planets. And then we have the heaven. And God made everything. And then, if we proceed, we see that God made everything in a very powerful way by his word. He made the light, he made the oceans, he made the birds, he made the vegetation, he made the animals. And above all, after every creation day, God proclaimed that what he made was good.
Was good,
So you see that God said that everything he created was good. So what does that one mean? It means that all the creature, all the living things that God made them as good things, including who? The human beings. So we see that after God had created all these things, God did his creation in how many days? God created the heaven and the earth in 6 days. And on the 6th day, God created man. And when he created man, he gave man dominion, he gave man power over the other creative works.
In fact, it says in verse number 28, after God blessed them, and God said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on earth. This is the beautiful thing that God has made and gave man to be in charge.
And further, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them.
Yes.
So it means that all of us, the male and female, we were all made in the image of God. And God said that we are good. So how does this tell us? What does this tell us on how we ought to relate with one another? It tells us that the relationships we have with one another, they are important because God made all of us and God made us good. And therefore, as human beings, we have no reason whatsoever to begin saying that this person is not good enough, this person is maybe weak, this person is, those kinds of things that bring barriers in our relationships, they go against the order of God because God created both male and female and all was good.
In fact, the order of God is we should consider everyone to be better than even ourselves. And so that is what we ought to do at such a time as this. But we are still building the story of creation. The perfection and the perfect nature in which God created us and the earth and everything that dwells therein, and what he expected thereafter to continue after he had placed man to be the chief steward of everything that he had created. So maybe I can see Brother Dan has something to add. Then we come back to you, Charles.
Just to add from what my sister said is that we know from Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 tells us God created heaven and earth. That includes everything in it, including us. Because when you get to Acts chapter 17 verse 28, the Bible says, for in him we live and move and have our being. So God, we see a God of order, a God who does things in an orderly manner. And at the same time, we can say in his creation, we can see creativity. in each and every part of the world, for those who travel, you see things around you. You'll see some kind of creativity that God has. And from that also, we can also see a God of relationship.
Of course.
So when we talk of God, everything that we can talk of Him, we being part of it, He did them all in His own wisdom, in His own love, because He wanted the world to be in a perfect harmony. Even the animals, our relationship with animals tells you that God wanted us to live in harmony in this world.
You're
So
right.
when He created, as my sister said, that He created, and when He saw everything that He created, He said it was very good. So God wanted the world to be a place where everything move in
As Charles wants to come in,
organized manner.
when
Yes.
God says it's very good, some people have tried to ask, what does it mean to be very good? What is this level of perfection that we reach a point where God is saying it's very good? The verse that remember read, that's in Genesis 1:27, and the book Education, page 15 by Ellen White, she says that the handwork of God was very, very good, to the extent that Adam bore in his physical, mental, and spiritual nature a likeness to his maker. So God was sort of making even a replica of himself in us. That's why he is a creator on one end, but he has given us the ability to procreate and continue filling the earth. So that's how, as you're saying, the issue of relationship, God wanted whatever he made. That's why we are co-creators. Among many other things that God wanted us to be in his own image and likeness. I can say, just before you continue, Charles come in so that we...
Yeah. Actually, creation is one of the stories in the Bible that really tells us how God powerful is. I know we speak of God's power when the children of Israel are being delivered from Egypt, all those miracles that happened. Also when Christ himself was here personally, the miracles that he did. But if there is a place where we can look for God's power and God's ability to perform,
It's in
is
creation.
actually in creation.
You're right.
You can imagine by him saying, let there be, and things just come to place. He said, let there be light, let there be land, let there be this, let the water separate. In fact, it was just a matter of mentioning, and things were actually in place. And that is why when you read the book of Psalms, it actually says, God has actually placed his word, what he actually mentions, even more than above more than above his name, yeah? So it is here that we really see that God is really powerful. Me and you, Elder, what can we say and it come to pass? We can only bank on the hope that whatever we say, God will give that thing power to actually become. But God is actually very, very powerful. The other thing maybe that we can take from creation is that we are actually in the image of God. When you look at how cows look like, they are 4 feet, yeah? When you look at how the fishes of the sea look like, when you look at how the birds of the air look like, they are totally different. But us as human beings, we are actually being told you have actually been created in God's image. We have 2 legs, we have 2 hands, we have 2 eyes, we have 2 ears. So even when we go to heaven, or even as Christ came, we saw how he looked like, and we are actually in this order of looking like God. So we are very, very special, yeah? And we have been given dominion on earth and power on earth, yeah? We control everything here on earth, yeah? The animals are under us, the fish are under us. If today we decided to do away with all the elephants, or to do away with all the fish by pollution, we are actually be sure that those things will actually not be there. So let us take the advantage that we are in God's image, and we are the people that actually say here on earth what should come to pass and what should not.
We want to take a short break, but even as we do this, let's continue rethinking, because for this week we are more of introducing the perfection, the perfect nature of how God wanted things to be. Then we will be able now to start rolling on what the major theme of this quarter is. How come that in the perfect world there will be the list of this? Who are the list of this? That question we'll be able to answer in the subsequent sessions. But for today, we want to understand what exactly God had in mind, because he willed to create and gave every creation his being, so that then it became alive. And so even as we take a short break, let's continue thinking about those things. Viewer, I want to believe that you're moving with us. Take your Bible and your notebook. Let's engage. And whenever you have a question, write it down. And by the end of this broadcast, you'll be able to send it, and we will get back to you. Welcome back. We want to continue with our discussion. We've just had a glimpse of creation. That first, we've even gone to the mind of God, was Charles saying, what God said it became. So it means he had already thought about it. And he had designed in his head where what will be, and where rivers could be, where mountains could be, and all those things. Even when he's creating fish, he already knows that he has already created water where the fish will thrive in. So we still want to delve in this mind of God and be able to understand. So let's continue. And Brother Dan, we get to the level of still explaining when God says it's good. Genesis 1:31, which was very good. So continue with that discussion so that we're able to get to an agreement. At the end of the day, if anyone has a question out there about what this means, you'll be able to get answers from here today.
Thank you, Elder. When God said it was very good, and that is Genesis chapter 1 and verse 31. When he created man, let's use Adam. You see, when God created Adam, Adam was very far much different from the people we see today. Actually, the records tells us it was more than 20 times with vital force. The vital force I can say is that the energy producing organelle
in our bodies.
So it was in terms of percentage, Adam was 2,000
%
times more than we are. So that's where, to bring it home, is when you look at the athletes, they have like more energy than what we have. So when we talk of the organelles, the powerhouse of the athletes, they have more energy than we have. So if the normal man today could stand before Abraham, you could even feel how energy comes out from him. So that tells you it was very powerful. And it was twice taller than what you see we are today. That tells you God created...
I would say it was twice taller than the tallest person.
Yes.
Because you and I think
we are shorter. So it was twice taller than the tallest man we know.
Who met me outside there, and they thought, in studio, I think these cameras, they make us look so big. So out there, like, oh, Elder, this is how you look like.
So he had...
yeah.
He had more. In scientific terms, we call them mitochondria. So he had, in terms of percentage, 2,000 times. So this guy was very energetic.
Yes.
He was created in a way that no man today can match that. So God looked at him and said, everything that I've made, actually, this man is very good. And the creation is perfect. And even looking at the universe, everything that he created, he saw it was organized, everything was moving in harmony, and he considers it good. And he was pleased with it.
In fact, as you're speaking, I'm already thinking in my mind.
Yeah.
God has made Adam this special with all that energy and the physique and everything because he was preparing him to be a steward. To tend the Garden of Eden and cultivate it and, of course, get food from it. So I'm looking at him creating someone who will be able to have the energy enough to do all those things, including managing and having dominion over everything.
Yes.
And now, maybe this man, Adam, he's been created with all those features so that he can tend to the Garden of Eden. He can be a good steward. So maybe you can give us some illustration about this man, Adam, and being a good steward. And, of course, the lessons we can draw to be good stewards of what we have, at least for now. Yes, we're in a sinful world. Things have been polluted all over, but we still have a role in stewardship. Yes.
Yeah. So stewardship is loosely translated is like taking charge of something, like taking care of something. So God created everything, and a lot of the recordings in the scripture, they talk about the creative work of God. And remember, he made most of these things. He just said, and he spoke a word, and the word was powerful enough, and it created it into being. And so he gives Adam the work. First of all, is to name. You know, every kind of plants and birds and fishes and animals. That was the first part of the stewardship that Adam was given the responsibility over, to give them names. So why was he giving them names? a name is an identity, so that you wouldn't confuse a donkey for a cow or for a sheep, or he wouldn't call a sparrow an eagle or something like that, or he would know that this is a tree, this is a mango tree, this is a pawpaw tree. So that's kind of you see, that is already responsibility that now Adam had to take upon himself. He gave all these things the names, and then he had to take care of them, just tend the garden and have dominion. That is what it meant to have dominion. Dominion also means you have power over something. So it meant that God created human beings above, just slightly above the animals and the plants and the fishes and everything. So that is when now we were able to exercise the dominion, the power we have. So at that particular time, it was Adam took responsibility over a perfect creation, a perfect world. Until now, sin came in, and then now it ceased to be perfect. Now, when sin comes in, now there is even the first death, even the leaves start to fall and everything. But all these things, even after the fall, after the sin, they are still under man. And that's why even today, man is above animals. You are able to take care of animals. We can even domesticate animals. We even feed animals. We are supposed to provide for them. So you find that was a responsibility that was given to man by God, having been made. The Bible also says that man was given the power to exploit, like to utilize. But then, does it mean that God gave the human being the power to just destroy and utilize and finish like the vegetation, and like man has done now? Because we say that, some people have said that God gave us the power, and therefore we have even damaged the environment. Yes. So that's kind of stewardship. Stewardship also calls for responsible use. So it's not about just exploiting everything, digging up all the minerals and leaving big holes, where even children can fall and die and all that. So that element of stewardship also brought responsibility. So in a perfect world, of course, we didn't need to dig and do all that stuff. It was just small tending, it was just about tending. It's little work here and there. But after the fallen world, then we still have to have dominion over the world, but also take responsibility, because as stewards, we are held accountable. A steward is not the owner. The owner will come and ask you, okay, what did you do with this and this and this? So we are also held accountable, and God will require us to give an account of how we were able to take care of the environment He put us in. Yeah.
Thank you, Mabel. Before Charles comes in, I want for the viewers to get this text. You talked about naming of animals. In the book of Genesis chapter 2, verses number 19, God says, the last part of that text says that out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, thus was its name. It became. This text, and one of my favorite speakers, preachers, I like the way he illustrates this. That whatever Adam, like if Adam could see an animal that has tusks like this, big, and he calls it elephant, God's work was to nod, because that is what he would have called it. And so you realize that we are what we are. All the names and whatever Adam called them, that became their name, and God agreed with it, because man at that time was in perfect harmony with the thoughts of God. And that's why when he was creating him in his likeness and his in image, the likeness here was even with the mental abilities for him to be able to resonate with the thinking of God. But of course, as maybe towards the end of our presentation, she's talking about sin comes in to separate. And then we are no longer now speaking the language of God. We are no longer resonating with the ideas and thoughts of God. And so as you come in, Charles, we want to restore this aspect of stewardship. So in addition to what you had in mind, we want now to apply these things. Remember, we want to live practical Christianity. That which we've been given, how do we take care of it? not for only the benefit of us who are seated here and back at home, but for the rest. Because at the end of the day, we have a group of vulnerable people, a group of marginalized people. The least of this, who these things need to benefit. How can we use them until they benefit those groups? Go on.
Actually, as we were on creation,
Yes.
when God had actually finished everything, he actually said that it was very good. You know, when the flood came, most of that beauty was actually destroyed, but then God will still have some of that beauty in terms of nature. So when God is saying that something was very, very good, know that it was actually very good. So one of the things that we can encourage ourselves, even at home, is that we were not there during the first creation. When God was saying, let there be, even Adam just came immediately after everything was in place. So we can only encourage ourselves by knowing that we shall be there in the second creation. Actually, God said that I will make all things new. I'll make a new heaven, I'll make a new earth. So it is my prayer when God will be making now the new earth, that Elder, you'll be there. When God will be saying, let there be, and maybe the elephant
I can't
comes.
be in the studio and miss there.
Yeah, when God will be creating the new heavens, we don't know whether the sun will be there, what heavenly bodies will be there that time, that me and you actually, we shall be there, so that we can witness the power of God firsthand, as the angels were there when they witnessed the creation of God, when it was actually being done firsthand. Maybe the other thing that we can also learn from creation, God was actually working. Yeah, and when God actually worked, he actually rested on the seventh day, and it is something that you are always told to do, as actually God did with us. And even when he was actually doing the work of redemption, God was actually rested on the seventh day when he was actually laying the tomb. So let us have faith, let us have courage, so that we may always be where God is and witness the work of his doing, even as they did in creation, when we shall be there in the new earth and the new heaven.
Thank you so much. I think, Elder, make your point, because we want to take a short break, but go on. I can see you have something
to add something.
Yes, go on.
See, just what my sister said, that stewards, we were, when God created man, he took him and put it into the garden.
Put him.
And what was he to do? What was his mission there? He was to dress the garden.
Yes.
And also do what? Also take to tail. To dress was to tail. And on another term, he was also to do what? To keep, which means to watch over it. So he had a responsibility. Apart from naming the animals, he was also to tail and to watch over it. Those were the responsibilities that he was given. Why was he put there? You see, he was to take care of this garden, because this garden was not for him and him alone and Eve alone. It was for even the generations that were to come.
Exactly.
So in other terms, we can talk of stewards are just managers. Whatever God puts in our possession, our work is to manage it, which
you
means
manage on behalf of God,
yes,
and for the benefit of them that come after you.
Which means whatever we have is not ours, including ourselves. We are not of ours.
You're right.
So that's why when we talk of the likeness and image of God, we look at dominion and rulership, because God owns the earth. When we get to Psalms 24 verse 1, tell us God owns the earth. So even us, he owns us. So when we are here, our where we talk of image of God and his likeness, when he gives us a power to have dominion and rulership, as he also has power and rulership over the world.
Thank you so much. Having built that, the foundation of this quarter's discussion, we now want to take a short break, but when we come back, we want to, again, a little look at the issue of sin, and of course, the issue of the freedom that God gave us to think, to choose, and of course, what that has done and brought us to where we are today. Viewers, I'm sure that by the grace of God, you're being blessed by this discussion. May you continue to follow and read the story of creation for yourself, so that you can be able to understand the mind of God. See you in a short while. Welcome back as we continue discussing the issue and the story. What we have now, it's about the story of creation, understanding it so that we can be able to go to the basics of what God intended from the beginning, where we are today, and how we need to move on so that we can be able to learn, to live, and practice Christianity that is good, that is meant, that is heaven bound anyway. And so, Charles, God created man in his, in his own image and likeness. But on top of that, he gave him the power to choose, to make decision. God wasn't a tyrant from the beginning. That's what I'm realizing. But then what has this freedom done to the world today?
We know that Adam chose to listen to the woman, or to Eve, and Eve had actually listened to the serpent. And as a result of that, sin actually came into the earth. And that has brought a lot of problems to us. I just want to read Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. In the NIV version, it says, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds of the air and over every living creature that moves upon the ground. I just wanted to highlight this part that says, be fruitful and increase in number. So we know how human beings increase in number and actually give birth to children and all that. So marriage, in terms of you and your wife and giving children, in God's plan, was actually to continue forever. Yeah, it was actually something that would have continued. Yeah, so we would be having a situation whereby you and your wife, you are actually living forever and ever. Under that plan, I don't know how many children you can actually be able to have, considering that there is no death. And when Christ was approached...
And in fact, that time, there was no labor pains.
Yeah, and
that's
that time, yeah. So the plan of intercourse and the plan of actually having sex for us as human beings to have children did not come after sin, actually, or after falling. It was a plan that was actually there even before we fall, before sin came. And that's why when the Sadducees approached Christ, they asked him, what will happen? And what will be the process of in heaven and in terms of marriage and children? When you read the book of Matthew chapter 22, verse 30, it is actually says, for in the resurrection, Matthew 22, verse 30, the King James Version, it says, for in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as angels of God in heaven. So where we are going, this aspect of marriage and having children and having a woman and a man and having this family life in bed, that will be normal, yeah, because of the sin and because of everything that came. But if we had not fallen into sin, we should be sure that some of these things would have actually continued forever, and we could have filled the earth and even exceeded even the population of angels in heaven, because angels neither marry, they have no chances of giving birth and so on. But let's look at the... Yes, Elder, you also something.
I just wanted to add that in addition to that, because now after sin, that we are not able to do those things. Yes. We are not able to have all those many children. Yes. Because again, beyond that, there are diseases are coming in. Yes. Beyond that, there is even the issue of labor pain nowadays. It's cesarean all over. Our wives have surgeries all over. And so you cannot really do this that we had been commissioned to do in the beginning. But then now the image of, sin and the world, and when you look at it from the perspective of St. Miles, you realize that at the end of it all, from Genesis 3, for instance, from verse number 18, the Bible says that both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you. This is the land. Remember, as you said earlier, he had been given, he was created after the land and the Garden of Eden had been planted. So there were no weeds, there were no thorns, there were no thistles. But now here comes a moment when sinners come and things are changing. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. But on the other side, in chapter 2, verse number 2, when you look at from verse number 8 going downwards, this is life in God's garden. You realize that of every tree of the garden you may freely eat. But now look at the process here, that in the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you are taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return. This becomes a very hard decision after sin has come in, and now there is no maybe you can pick my words and continue from there.
Yes.
Before comes in, because I'm actually not finished. I actually gave you my card.
Go on.
So when now sin came into the place,
Yes.
and there was actually sin in place, that is when now the consequences came.
Yes.
Like the way you are saying. So Eve was told now, initially there was no pain when you are giving birth, but as from today, you shall actually have the pains when you are actually giving birth. And now, initially, when sin was not in place, you and Adam were actually equals. Yeah. In fact, the rib was taken here to the center, meaning that you shall actually be equals.
Yes.
But now, because you have listened to the serpent, that will be no more. This man will be your head, and he will actually rule over you. And those are some of the consequences that came. And actually, Eve was told, regardless of the pain during birth, regardless of this man being your ruler or being the head of you, your desire or your love shall always be upon your husband, and always to go unto her. So these are some of the consequences that we face. And as you rightly said, Adam was not sweating to eat. In fact, his work was just to wake up every morning to go and pick fruits from the garden and actually eat. But today we still live with those consequences.
Yes.
For you to be able to pay rent, for you to be able to pay school fees, for you to be able to ensure that life is running in the normal way, you actually have to sweat, you have to go through losses, you have to go through a lot of pain, and even disease and all these things coming on. So had we remained faithful to God, life would have been perfect. But let's thank Christ that we are going back to the Garden of Eden,
Yes.
and everything will be well. Thank you.
Everything will be restored. Yes, you go on.
And just to add on to it, something also more tragic than childbirth and having to work happened. In Genesis chapter 4, verses 8,
Yes.
now we see, now Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and killed him. Death also has come in now.
Yeah.
As a result of a broken world, which has been broken by sin. So you see that the problems are compounding. They're becoming more and more and more. And further in Genesis chapter 6, we see further degradation. Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 to 6. It says, Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and the beast creeping with the birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. So the degradation of the world continues because of the sin. Now many things were just going bad. Death has come in. Man is becoming so wicked, cherishing his own treasure, and God was not happy. But the good news is that when we read in John 3 verses 16, we see the love of God, that great love of God, that he loved the world, that he sent his only son. And just as everyone had sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, Jesus has come, and Jesus now gives us hope of eternal life in a new world that God is going to give unto us. So as we look at the broken, being stewards of a broken world, we still have hope that if we continue the way God has intended us, that all is not lost, that we can still do good in the broken world with sin that God has made us, and maintain those relations, maintain those family relations, and live together the way God wants us to live, as a close family, as a family of humanity, and taking care of one another. Then God still has assured us of returning us into a new heaven and earth where there will be no sorrow.
Thank you so much. Elder, you've been listening keenly. I know so many thoughts are running in your mind.
They are saying quite good things there. And I just want to add from what they've said, that see the freedom, the moral freedom that God gave to Adam and Eve, and even the possibility of choosing whether to obey or disobey.
Yes.
See, that freedom that we fight for today, sometimes it has its effect both negatively and positively on us. Look at the Garden of Eden. Now, when you read chapter 3 from verse 1 to 5, the destroyer comes in. And the end of verse 1, where the serpent asked Eve, has God said that if you eat this, you should not eat the fruits of the garden? But see, God instructed Eve and Adam that you should not eat. You can eat any, but not the one in the midst of the garden.
That's chapter 2, verse 17. But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not
You
eat, for
shall
in
not
the
eat.
day that you eat of it, you shall surely die.
Die.
But thereafter, now what you're saying, chapter 3,
End of verse 1.
it
Yes.
says, has God indeed
Said.
you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And so he continues to tell them in verse number 3, you shall not, you shall surely not
Die if you eat. Now, what was the devil driving in her mind? Now, number one, he was creating doubt. The temptation was to covet whatever God had given them. Now, the devil was trying to tell them that they can have even more than what God has given them, removing their reliance from God to their own self-reliance.
Yeah.
Now, you see, that's where we lost it. Now, when God created Adam and Eve, they never knew they were naked. Why? Because there was that glory
Yeah, they were
of God
covered
that
in the glory.
was covering them all over. Immediately they tasted that fruit, the glory of God left.
Yes.
And that's where man fell. And the relationship between God and man disappeared from that moment when sin came in. So whenever we are crying for freedom, we need to stop and think, this freedom we are fighting for, is it going to be of importance to our life, or is going to take us in a different path?
Right.
So it's very key. The result of sin, now we can see the life became more harder even to Adam. He was now struggling. Everything, even the relation with the animals, the plants around him, everything was a struggle.
Yes.
And even relationship with our families and everybody else is a struggle nowadays. Now that is because of sin. So when the destroyer came in, everything changed.
And as we close on this discussion, then you realize that we have the power to choose, but then it also depends on what we choose. God has always given us such a choice. And like, for example, Mabel mentioned on the issue of death and Cain and Abel. God himself, in his conversation with Cain, he tells him that if you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door. But God did not stop there. And its desire is for you, the desire of sin is for you, Cain. But you should rule over it. You should make a choice not to be controlled by sin, but rule over it. So this is where Cain was to make a choice, but he could not be able to make a choice. Soon after that, he made the wrong choice and killed a brother. And death comes in. So I think we as we continue looking at this, we are now seeing the perfect creation is starting now being marred by sin over and over again. So in less than 30 seconds, let's make our closing remarks so that we're able to close the program and look forward to the next week when we will discuss now about another level. You go ahead.
Okay. One thing is that God created us all, the rich and the poor. God created us all in his own image, and we were all very good. And we were created by God out of love, and we did not come out of chance and time and any other thing. All nature points towards a loving creator, God. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brother Charles.
Actually, the lesson is speaking about ministering to those in need. And when you read many verses in the Bible, it actually says it is God that makes one rich. It is actually God that makes one poor. So regardless of how God has prospered you now after seeing where we are struggling, all of us, to make money, let us always remember that we owe it to our brothers and sisters to help those who are in need, either their family members, relatives, or even people that are not related by blood. Let us always make that effort to always be kind and generous to our brothers.
Thank you so much, Elder.
I just want to close by saying that we are woven in a world of humanity. We are related to one another, and our source is God. So whatever we do, God demands our entire life, including worship and our services. You see, when Cain decided to go his own way, his offer was rejected because he followed his own direction. God had instructed any sacrifice must be done by the shedding of blood. But he chose on his way to take to God fruits.
Yes.
But God demanded blood. So even when we have freedom, we need to understand what did God say.
So that we're able to choose
Yes.
like what God could have chosen. My fellow believers and friends at home, we conclude that yes, God created us all. We also conclude that yes, He gave us His breath of life. We also conclude that yes, we are at a position to receive His blessings. And yes, He set us apart for Himself and created us in His own image and likeness, but all this has been marred by sin. And so we look forward to discussing more about the blueprint of a better world next week, so that then we see, after all this has happened, is all hope lost? No. There is a plan for a better world. How are we going to build it? So, Brother Charles, kindly close this with a word of prayer, and that God will help us to really sustain this discussion.
Okay, let us pray. Father, Lord, we thank you that you have guided us to know that you created us in your image, and once we have things that you have given us, will be a blessing to others. Guide us and direct us, Lord, and continue using us, even our viewers at home, that you may remember everyone in need and be a blessing to them. Thank you, and we give glory and honor to your holy name. And this we pray, believing and trusting in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much. Don't forget to check on the website of Hope Channel social media channels. Find us there and go through the archived shows before. And if there is any comment, kindly write it. We'll be able to respond back to you. God bless you. Till next time.